Hello, my name is Paul Hamblin. I'm from Treehouse Digital, a UK-based production company, and I'm going to give you a talk about bootstrapping live-action, real-time, in-camera VFX for indie filmmakers. So, my name is Paul. I'm the head of virtual production at Treehouse. I also act as a first assistant director, and I've been with Treehouse from the start. And before that, I was actually a navigator driving warships for the Royal Navy. A bit of a career change. We are Treehouse Digital. We make really cool original content as well as working as a service provider for other companies. We're Oscar qualifying filmmakers and we're a full stack production company. We have won multiple awards and we do everything from writing to filming to the editing, the visual effects, and now virtual production. So why am I here really? Well, we had a problem in that we wanted to create a realistic car crash and driving scenes, and this is going to be difficult, obviously, without crashing a car because of the dangers. We wanted to reduce the disconnect also of being on set and in post-production, as you normally get when you're doing something like this in VFX using green screen, etc. We wanted to be able to just see what's going to happen on set rather than having a lengthy post-production process. So while we were thinking about this, suddenly Epic Games came out early August last year with their virtual production Spotlight, using basically the teams that would go on to create The Mandalorian. And it blew us away, and we said, this is how we have to do this. This is the future. And then along came The Mandalorian, and after we'd done our test, actually, this came out, and it just, the rest of the world suddenly realised as well that this is an incredible tool. So we knew what we needed to do and what we wanted to do. So how did we go about that? Well, the first thing was that we needed to figure out how the heck you do this. And the great thing about, obviously, with Epic and the Unreal Engine, as you know if you're listening to this, is that there's so much open source information available. So we just wanted to I mainly watched a bunch of online tutorials, and I found the easiest thing to do was to just go through it all and make a big list of things that I knew I needed to learn, and then keep adding to it and removing from it, and that way then it got a good grounding of the information needed. And I think I'd recommend that to anyone who's going to dip their toe into virtual production using a game engine, particularly Unreal. There's so many webinars and tutorials online that you need to become fluent in the whole ecosystem, because there's so much to it. And once you then get the difference between NDisplay and Live Link and all the other different terminology and things you're going to hear, you'll find it a lot easier to do the things that are appropriate for you. So the basic overview of what is virtual production, or what is LED-based virtual production. I like to call it LED virtual production rather than in-camera VFX, because I think it's a way of creating content rather than a VFX tool. You need LED backgrounds. You can use projectors, but the LED, because of the contrast and the fact it emits light rather than being a receiver of light, means obviously you're then getting dynamic lighting, which is one of the big reasons people use it. Then combine that with the real-time rendering and camera tracking, combined together gives you the parallax and the depth, which then makes it all realistic and convincing, rather than sometimes looking a little bit disconnected like you get with green screen. So what is the high-end setup, and what was used on The Mandalorian, and what was used in the test that we saw? There was actually a talk at SIGGRAPH by Ryan and from Epic, and he gave a really good breakdown of it, and this is one of his slides that I've sort of tweaked. And this is the different teams that came together to create it. So you got Lux Machina, who provided the LED screens and put them all together. Profile with the tracking, the NCAM tracking system. Then obviously the ARRI cameras with Matt Workman working as DOP, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be giving a talk at this as well. And then Quixel Megascans, which at the time wasn't free, but obviously now is free. And what they do is all from a multi-user system inside Unreal. You have your primary machine, which is running the level. It then, using NDisplay, goes out to 3 render nodes for theirs. So they had render 1 was to the left side screen and then up to the middle. Render 2 was the right, and then render 3 was their ceiling. And they were synced together using Quadro cards and Genlocked, which is really important, because otherwise, between the different renderer nodes, you'll get ripping where there's slightly different moments within the frame, so then you're going to get ripping between the two screens, and I can just completely throw everything. So you need to genlock it, and as far as I'm aware, the only decent GPUs that are capable of doing that at the moment are the NVIDIA Quadro cards, and that's why we use them. We didn't have one of those for our test, but that's why people use them for these multi-render node setups, whereas, say, the RTXs and the new RTXs that are coming out may actually be better for just pure CG. And a lot of people say, why on earth do you use the Quadro cards? Well, that's why, because you need to genlock them. Then they had a comp computer, and that was compositing a feed into, I think they used a Blackmagic capture card, but you could use an Azure. But just check that. I think the Blackmagic 8K is the one that most people seem to be using, and you can live then composite if you're using basically what they had is in the frustum of the camera was following around. If they needed to, they could hit the green screen button, and on Mandalorian they did this a lot. There's a button that they had in preset, and it'll just throw up a green screen. So you're still getting the dynamic lighting, it's just around the frustum. But you can then composite later, or if you have a feed into the composite machine, which is linked up with all the others, then you can live composite the green screen, which is pretty cool. They had on-set VR scouting. For me, that's you don't need it on set so much, because that's all, in my view, pre-production stuff. And basically, VR scouting, you probably know this, but is when you can throw on a VR headset. They had two, but you can throw on a VR headset and then go into the environment and plan shots and move rocks around and put markers in and measure things. And you can do loads of really cool stuff, that basically like a set visit but in VR. But you can also have a monitor, so you can have a little camera display, and you'll see what each lens is going to look like in the environment and things like that. It's really cool. And then obviously they used Quixel. Megascans library. They just did the real-time demonstration of that blew people away, and so they use some of the same assets at a really high polygon count to make it look really realistic, but still be able to render it in real time. So that was the high-end setup. So after investigation, we realized that wasn't quite going to be doable when we were doing the test, because we were so early days in the process, we couldn't throw that kind of cash at it. So there is a low budget way. And really, when you're talking about anything to do with filming, you need to figure out what is the minimum viable product at all times, and then what else do we need on top of that. And really, virtual production, using LED screens, you need a camera, you need the engine or something to be displayed, and you need the screens. So camera, display, screens. So really, everything else on top of that is a bonus. Now, obviously, as I said before, if you can track the camera and get parallax, then that adds to realism. So then that's going to be an important part of it for static scenes. So we thought, well, what do we have? Well, we had a gaming PC. We had an HTC Vive and Tracker Pack. We had the LED screens that we borrowed in the corner of someone's warehouse. They were very kind to give us 2 days with a little setup, just a teeny one. And we had camera and lights. Actually, we Take Two in London were really kind and lent us a red camera, and it's a large format camera. But to be honest, we own a Blackmagic, and it would have done just as well for the test. We just wanted to try out this camera because you can, and some lights, because although you get lighting from the screens, we didn't have a ceiling screen for starters. and second, you always need lights when you're filming. What do we use? We use the Unreal Engine. We use Megascans, which is then free, and we used some free content from the Unreal Engine Marketplace. I think it was one of the free for the month packs. It was one of the environments, one of the forest environments, and we basically took that and tweaked it. So this is the result. So some things we compromised on. We couldn't genlock. We only had one PC. It only had a RTX card, and it didn't have a Quadro card. But we were only using one machine, so we just didn't genlock. What that meant was the camera also wasn't genlocked to the LED panel, so we did have to play with frame rate settings within the processor for the LED things, but it's just trial and error. And I think for indie filmmakers, then you can change the shutter angle, you can change the frequency and things on the fly, because you are able to do that, look through the monitor, check it's okay, and you have more flexibility. We didn't use N-Display. At the time, using the Vive puck was really difficult to create what's called a VRPN, Virtual Reality Private Network. Now there's some really good tutorials online, and I really recommend everyone joins the Matt Workman's Facebook group, Virtual Dutching using Unreal Engine. And once you remember that, search for VRPN or search for HTC Vive. It's now a lot easier. It's quite a complicated process setting it up, but now there's a really good tutorial on how to do that. So we didn't have camera tracking for parallax. However, obviously this was a calculated thing because we were in a moving car and we were never stopped. So we realized very quickly in the testing process, you didn't need to track the camera. There was so much parallax going on the screen for us in the test that we didn't need to do the tracking. And this is, I think, is the key for indie production. Figure out what you actually need. So when we looked at, we need a screen, we need a camera, and we need something to put on the screen. Then when we looked at the tracking and we saw all the problems we were going to get with it and how much it might delay and how it might not work with our setup, we realized we're not going to benefit enough to use it because we're in a moving car with parallax, with trees parallaxing. So we binned it, and I'm really pleased we did, because then it gave us more time to figure out things like the animation, etc. And we didn't have ceiling panels, so we didn't quite get as much lighting as we would like, but the reflections and lighting blew us away anyway. The other thing was it was a really light environment in the warehouse because we were just tucked in the corner of IMAG's warehouse, which was really kind of them. But we couldn't control the light. So therefore, there was a lot of, we didn't get as much dynamic lighting as potentially we would do, but we were still blown away at how much impact what we did get gave us. So we learned a lot doing this test, and in the process of getting to the point to be able to do the test. And one of the biggest things was actually just how easy it is to get into Unreal. And I actually did the, coming from sort of the first assistant director's point of view. I'm a closet geek, so I am interested in these things, but I don't use Maya or anything like this. But getting into Unreal was so easy, and the ecosystem they're building is so artist friendly that actually it was just such a simple process to get to the place where we had something that we could work as a team and look at and go, yeah, that's good. No, we need to change it. And it was just incredible. But I couldn't believe how quickly I got into it. And I think with virtual production at the moment, it's like any new, I say new, it's been around for a while, but any kind of process that's kind of taking off. And that's that. There's going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, can't do it without this. You can't do it without." So I've been saying you can't do it without quadro cards. We did it without a quadro card, for example. So you don't need all this massive horsepower. You don't need to have, these amazing setups, depending on what you're doing. So we did this, as I say, with one mid-range. I think it's £1,000 gaming PC, maybe less. With an RTX video card. It was nothing fancy or at all, and we powered 3 screens off of it. So you'd be amazed how far you can get without having to go down the 3-4 render nodes, the quadro cards, the £10,000 PCs. You can really get quite a long way without doing that, and because of that, you need to allow time for playing around. We call it playtime, where you sit in Unreal and you try things out. And also, if you can get the LED screens, then you go there with the creative team and they have a look at it, and then you play around together. And that's where VR scouting things can come in really handy as well. We had one of our art director guys had a look through and gave some really good tips and directions and things we could do to make the scene look better, because they jumped in there in VR and had a look around and moved things, and we moved things around together. The other thing is you need to have a really open dialogue with the director of photography and mainly the director of the piece. They need to, and I'll talk about this in a bit, but you need to be in a safe environment that you can talk to each other about things, because it's a new way of filming, and you'll be amazed at what you can and what you can't do. The more things we had ready to tweak, the better. So by this, I mean basically learn your blueprints, just be able to do basic blueprints, because we did it in editor, but if you're doing in display, obviously you're going to have to compile the game first. But even in editor, all the animations I had set for keystrokes, so that if I wanted to start the animation, I just hit space, stop, space, reset was enter, change camera was V, and C, and all these different, just keyboard shortcuts that I'd done in blueprints, because it just made a massive difference. But being able to do that immediately without panicking and having to stop everything and get under the hood and panic, then you lose that respect and trust from your team. So try and keep things simple and reliable. Test them, keep it simple. As soon as you start getting overly complicated with things, too many details within your fogs and all these things, you're going to start coming unstuck. It needs to be simple and reliable and repeatable. We learned that you don't need to track. We don't think track the camera in a moving car. We had troubles as well we did use the Vive pack on set. We had problems with it. We found it was a bit unreliable. Other people say it's fantastic. I found it was turning off. It was being a real pain. But then we didn't really give it that much time. And use Z-depth to your advantage. You've got this depth, and I think in looking back at our test, I'd use more things that are close to the camera to come across. I'd use the depth more, whereas I was still thinking about it like a matte painting. If you are animating, I came across with this. Make sure the lead in and out points, because you're going to give yourself a warm-up time in the animation, but make sure it's just as beautiful as the rest of it, because you will end up using the leading bit, because it will be just right, and the director will say, no, take that, it's great, and you'll be cussing yourself that you didn't bother putting any trees in the background, or you didn't bother sorting the landscape out or doing the road on that bit. So never have any bit of the environment basically that you're using unproduction ready, because it's the one thing that will be shot, and you know it. And then when you're doing your environments or whatever you're doing, even if you're just piecing things together, use reference imagery or footage. We went out into the New Forest and we filmed in the car, and we used reference footage from online, etc. Don't be tempted to go too far away from that. Plan what it's going to look like first, and then match that, rather than going, oh, that looks cool, and trying to match the story to go with what you managed to make look beautiful. So what's the power of doing stuff in camera? I think for me, the biggest thing was suddenly the whole set was involved. Everyone was looking at it, going, oh, let's do this, and oh, let's do that. And they suddenly got it. And then we could dress everything to the camera. So, you put the camera in shot, and if you need a little bit extra light, or if you wanted to move the background around a little bit, you could do that on set to camera. It's not a fire and hope setup. And then you'll naturally find amazing free shots because it's in camera, and that makes it artist friendly, and the crew get it, and they'll start chipping in with good ideas, and because you got that instant feedback, I think also it's a lot more efficient. So the time pressure gets removed slightly. Resetting a moving car is can take a really long time, and you can focus more on the action because it's you reset, done. Not say you're doing a stationary scene in a forest. Well, normally all of your kit is behind the camera, and you try and do a reverse, and you're having to move stuff, and it's going to be an hour, half an hour, or whatever to reset for the reverse. We just twist the background 180 degrees, dress the front of the set, bang, you're in, and then you can concentrate on the important things. You can experiment with time of day. You can have a sunset that goes on forever. We were going to shoot at sunset, and we decided to shoot in the middle of the day instead, and that was just a button press. So you can literally tweak the world, and for me, it was an assistant director's dream, because you're constantly ticking off shots. Have we got it? Have we got it? Are we on time? Have we got it? And it's one of the first times I can look in the monitor and go, yes, we've got it. There's nothing else that needs doing. So when you're working with a crew and a director, and say you're the virtual production person, you got to start with them early if you can. Get them engaged in the process so they feel, so that they can contribute. And please don't underestimate them, and don't keep them out of that process, because these are very talented people, and you'll be amazed at what they will bring to the table. Everything from the art director to the director of photography to the director, everybody on set will have something, and then you'll suddenly go, oh, because it's not all about what you can do in the Unreal Engine. That's a supporter. Learn how to communicate what you're doing, and understand what everyone else on set is doing, and have respect for that, and have respect for what their goals are and what their stresses are, and talk in a way that they understand. The film industry's been around for a long time. They don't need to understand your jargon because you've probably made it up. You need to get it into film set jargon in ways they understand, and you'll be amazed how quickly they buy into this. And if you're not getting in the way and you're supporting, then you're going to get some amazing insight from them. And as I said before, Pete, our director, was coming up with things, and I just thought, I didn't think of that for a minute, and we're shooting suddenly a reflection through on the side of a car of the screen, going along, and you just think, wow, this is just amazing. And that's because we had an open communication process with each other. And you've got to be prepared, have your blueprints ready. And I'll just show you a couple of mine, but it could just be really simple, but this is the way you're going to survive. So, for example, on this one, this is just changing the camera. So because I did it all in editor, I needed to be able to quickly change which camera it was. And you could do this if you wanted to move the camera around, things like that. But you can see how simple that is. It's just a set view target with blend, add the camera, assign it to the letter V. That was the front camera. So I just had to click on that player window, press the V button, and that was then the front camera. Simple. But if I didn't have that, I'd have to then be going through and clicking things in the editor, and every time we loaded it up, there would have been all sorts of hassle. And then the animation. This is the motorbike. So sorry, the car. And when I press space, it starts and stops the animation. So we pre-made the animation as a sequence, as a level sequence, and then just the spacebar starting and stop that. Again, you know, it's not very impressive, but it saved us so much time and gave the crew confidence that it was in hand and it was reliable. Space start, space stop, done, easy. And that's the power of Blueprints. And you can do this using the API and doing it on an iPhone app, iPad app or whatever. You can do it. You know, you can set up Blueprints to change the time of day. You can change the sky domes. So I would highly recommend getting involved in Blueprints, and they're really, really easy. So what are the benefits of real-time rendering in a game engine? Obviously, it's not locked. You can change things on the fly within reason, rather than having to render it out. Again, it's artist-friendly with immediate feedback. I found it easier to understand than a traditional CG pipeline. I just thought it was much easier to get into and understand. It's interactive. So if you can plug anything into a game, then you can use it on set. So if we wanted to, we could have made the car drivable by the actor. If we wanted hydraulics to make the car move with the environment, just plug it in. And that's the beauty of a game engine. Then the VR scouting is really, really good, I think, for pre-production. And then the real-world physics just meant that although I animated that, there was also a version where I could have recorded me driving that car, because that was a drivable car that we used. And it would have just crashed into the tree. I just wanted control by animating, but you could quite as easily driven that car. So how is it possible on a small budget? I think you just need to realise what is and isn't needed. There are great resources out there, but there's also the kind of people that are going to tut and say things aren't possible. Find the shortcuts, find the easy way of doing it, and if you can cut swathes and swathes of things out if you don't need it. And because you're an indie filmmaker, that's okay. If you're on the set of a Game of Thrones or something, then obviously you're going to need to do things in a certain way. But if it's your indie production and everyone has buy-in, then there's lots of shortcuts you can take. So you don't be overwhelmed by what you think is a perceived barrier to entry. We had no network, ran it all off of a PC. We didn't do tracking with no end display, and we did it all in Editor, running 3 different screens. You could build an environment using Megascans, which is completely free, or go in the asset store, and for £30 to £100 you can get an amazing environment, or just use the free ones like we did. You need to compromise and have full buy-in. If anyone is a naysayer and they're not going to chip in, they're going to find it very easy to find ways of knocking you down, because you're going to have to take shortcuts. So then anytime there's moire or anything like that, they're going to find a way of trying to get it shut down. So you need buy-in from everyone, and then you need flexibility from everyone. The DOP needs to know to use a filter on the lens, a Pro Mist, to smooth things, or may have to have a little bit of play with the shutter angle, may not be able to get within a couple of meters of the screen, or 5, depending on the pixel pitch. And then obviously the biggest barrier to entry is the LED displays. However, the event space is in trouble at the moment, and they're looking to the filming industry. So LED stages are popping up all over the place, and there's going to be some indie-friendly LED stages popping up, including ours, because this is a really effective way of filming. I'm just going to show you a little bit of more behind the scenes.
It's very exciting. This has been like 3 months to get here, to actually put what has been a lot of theory into practice. So we're excited. We're going to be intrigued to see what we capture. Today is a tech day, really. It's finding, getting the Unreal Engine to play on these screens. We have a Red Ranger 8K camera, which we're setting up with large format lenses. Getting the balance right with ND filters, lighting, making sure the Unreal Engine plays smoothly on there. And then tomorrow we roll. Okay, and Steve, just you go along and then crush it, Paulie. There we go, crushing. Very good cut. This is really the very reason why we're using these screens. We have done, in about 15 minutes, 7 takes of a car crash. If we were doing that practically, it costs a lot of money and obviously safety and everything else. It looks very convincing. The results are great, and it's that interaction, that sort of immediacy of how we know it's working. So now we're just swinging lenses, we're trying new things out. You know, on a green screen, you're kind of in the lap of the gods of what's going to happen, really. You can plan it as much as you can, but with this, you know, we're confident that we've got something that looks like a real car crash. So just look out your window, like the bike is right next to you, Steve. And he's right up against your door. What the hell is he doing? And 3, 2, 1, Paulie, crash. That's good. It's the first shot in the can of today, and I think it's already proven to us this is exactly the way to do this sort of stuff. Maybe we'll do a couple more, like, just stuff we can get. You know, like if we can see Steve's
Inserts,
eyes
Oh yeah, we can.
with the environment behind,
Yeah, we
and
could.
in this room.
Yeah, we could.
I can kind of react to what I'm actually seeing on the screen, and I think that gives a more believable performance.
So what's next for us? I'm incredibly excited to announce we are building our own stage, as you've probably guessed. We're making a purpose-built LED studio in Bournemouth, and we're going to bring in set design, VFX, virtual production, massive LED screen with a ceiling, because we believe so wholeheartedly that this is the future for us of filmmaking. And we've had obviously a few requests now because of the current coronavirus situation that it's a really safe way of filming as well. So this is super exciting, and but I think you're going to see lots of these popping up, and I think there's going to be quite a few that are indie friendly, as well as, you know, we're going to be working on big stuff and also for things for indies and making our own content on it. And I think the key is to remember that it's just one part of the process. And I think that's my take-home message: is you need a set designer, both virtually and in real life. I'm seeing too many. Quite clearly, someone stood in front of an LED screen. Well, if it's quite clearly stood in front of an LED screen, just do it on a green screen. What this can do is help dynamically light the situation and merge it in, but it's just a part of the process. And that's why, you know, if you are going to go and use an LED stage, just make sure it's somewhere that they understand the entire process and they can merge it all in together. And I think that's the way to look at it for your productions, is to make sure that you are seeing it as what it is, which is just a really, really good way of building very modern sound stages. And that's what it is. Thank you very much for listening to me. My name's Paul. I'm here to answer your questions. And you can find us at treehousedigital.com or d-stage.co.uk. Thank you very much. Cheers.